Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is basic components of the correlation rules of SIEM. So while the core components of the correlation rule aim to detect complex cyber threats, it includes several important components for this purpose. So first, event and sources of data. Event and source of data form the basis of these components. Security events and data are collected from the organization's network and systems. Definitely. These sources include security infrastructure such as the logs, the system event logs, the application logs, and the security devices. The second important component of the correlation rule, first component is event and sources of data. The second is the fundamental principle of correlation rule. This principle defines the conditions under which a correlation rule gets triggered, right? What is the fundamental principle of that rule getting triggered? When certain conditions or events occur. The correlation rules help the organization be better prepared against the security threats by analyzing meaningful relationship between security events and data. The next critical component of the correlation rule is the condition and match conditions. This component contains the condition and the match conditions that are required to create and trigger that rule. For example, a specific security event can trigger the rule if certain conditions or a threshold is met, right? And these conditions are determined in accordance with the organization's security policies and threat model. Next is finally one of the components that makes the correlation rule work is triggering that rule. This means that when events and data are analyzed, the rule detects that the particular situation has occurred, and a triggered rule signals the presence of a specific security event or threat and initiates an appropriate response. So this component enables the organization to respond to security threats quickly and effectively. Now, what are the sources of events and the data? The security event and data, the main elements that are used when creating the correlation rule are security events and data that comes from the organization security infrastructure. This could be network logs, system event logs, application logs, the data that is generated by security devices, and the threat intelligence. Next is source of incidents. The source of security incidents is the organization's network and systems. For instance, network logs may contain information about traffic and connections on the network, while system logs capture events that are related to operating system and applications, right? Next is the source of data that is used when creating the correlation rule is also crucial. These resources come from security infrastructure such as firewalls, intrusion detection and prevention, IDS, IPS, antivirus, and SIEM systems. The data types used when creating a correlation rule can also vary. For example, IP addresses, user IDs, port numbers, timestamps, file names, and more may be examples of these data types. Next is threat intelligence. Threat intelligence can also be used to increase the effectiveness of the correlation rule by providing information about new threats and malicious activities that the organization needs to know. Next is collecting and storing that data is a critical step for analyzing security incidents and applying correlation rules. Organizations often store this data using log management and storage systems. The source of events and data is fundamental building block for the correlation rule to work effectively. Accurately identifying these resources increases the ability to detect security incidents and then provide organizations with greater visibility. And when creating the correlation rule, we should also consider what data sources should be used and what type of data will be analyzed in accordance with the security needs of the organization. Next is basic principle of correlation rule. The basic principle of the correlation rule describes how the rule works to detect a specific security threat or event by analyzing security events and data. Right, how that rule works. What is the basic principle of correlation rule? Correlation of security events. The main purpose of correlation is to identify relationships between security events and data. Next is timestamp, triggering that correlation rule. Appropriate response, how to respond. Then customization and improvement, condition and matching conditions. One of the key components of correlation is defining the conditions and matching conditions that are necessary for the rule to be triggered. And this component is an important element that directs the operation of the correlation rule. and links the security events or situations to specific characteristics. So defining of correlations and conditions, matching condition, then is binding operation, then priority and ordering, customization and improvement, then is triggering the correlation rule and match of that condition, event timestamp, analysis of event, a response that gets triggered. We need to initiate an appropriate response, trigger priority. The triggering mechanism of the correlation rule is an important component. Which operator means that all conditions must match at the same time, that is and. Which operator states that at least one of the conditions is sufficient, that is or. And here completes our next lecture of basic components of correlation rules. Do subscribe the channel too for more such videos, as we post videos every day at 1:30 a.m. IST timing. And do like, share, and subscribe the channel, and share it with your friends if they are into cybersec or they want to be a SOC analyst, anything what you wish to. Thank you for watching. Bye.